everyone. Today we're going to be looking at what if civilization started over. So today we are on the sixth episode, where in our last episode we saw a bunch of different events happen, including us changing the map with an ocean. However, basically, yeah. So, firstly, what we're going to be taking a look at is that firstly the Japanese over here decide to regain territories back from Korea, which from our last episode we found that we saw Korea leaving Japan, leaving the Japanese Empire, and also the Chinese over here gaining Taiwan. And we can also see that now the Japanese are actually really mad because, yeah. Sorry, I was having a conversation with my mom, but yeah. But anyways, firstly the Japanese gain territory in these areas, and secondly the Japanese also want to declare war on Russia, which is a really huge event because it'll take forever for them to actually do it. Which actually, speaking of which, they actually just do it. But by gaining these territories, and then the Japanese also gain an extra this territory right here, going all the way up over here, splitting this area, which then will be taken away by the Russians. Then the Japanese gain the eastern territories of Siberia, and eventually will meet up with the other area right here. Japan will then continue all the way up here, meeting up with their with troops over here. Now then, these troops gain territory over here, then encircling a bunch of troops right here. Then they encircled it again, and then they encircled it again. They just love encircling stuff. Don't worry, they love encircling. They're actually gonna teach you how to do that. So eventually, Japan surprisingly gains this, which then Japan gets ready for all over here. They just gained all of the territory that they just wanted, and 90% of those territories are just Korea and this island right here. However, anyways, let's look at the treaty. So in this peace treaty, you can see that now this Korea right here has this territory, which actually, let me fix the borders, and yeah, that looks more good. And you can actually see. Wait a minute, what? Okay, that just seems fair. So basically, Japan gains this whole island, which I originally wanted Korea to have half of the island, but whatever. I just don't like that. I just don't like the idea. However, anyways, after this war, China, then decides to gain more territory westward, so that they could have more Chinese influence in this empty spot right here. Now they'll then gain these territories, being super close to the capital of the red team. India also decides to join in by bordering this blue country, which then the red country actually dislikes. But by the way, that is true. That are you freaking kidding me? But anyways, yeah, they do both have some beef, because they just have beef. So firstly, the red team decides to go into these areas, and there were also some revolts over here. Anyways, I actually did everything. Okay. So anyways, there are some revolts over here, wanting red team control over the blue team. Now the reason why the red team is trying to attack the blue team is because the red team thinks that the fact that the blue team was the leading revolt during the the green revolt thingy that happened, like with these. The red team actually thought that they were the ones who actually controlled every single army, and including citizens who also joined in. So because of that, the red team wants to attack the blue team, and in order to actually continue the rebellions and also the attacks, the red team also put propaganda posters around the border with China, and the green team, and airplanes were also sent to India to also show that India has to also join into the war, which they end up believing. As they then join the war with the side of the fact that now that the propaganda is actually partially true, the Indians decided to also join in, which, by the way, they're actually one of the strongest nations. The red team, kind of the strongest. Anyways, the red team is actually really close to the capital city, and now they've also encircled the capital city with India. Meanwhile, we're going to be taking a look here, where we can see that now the old empire has actually gained more territory because of the international Arabic zone. Once again, Arabic zone, you're absolutely destroying what you're supposed to be. However, the international Arabic zone actually said that the only nerf to the whole expansion is that the orange team will gain their old territories back, which is at least good, okay? Anyways, the Arabic International Zone over here is having a meeting with Russia because the Russians are actually asking the International Arabic Zone if they could actually leave the alliance, as they feel that they're not actually part of the alliance, as the Middle East is actually just this. All it is just this. However, the International Arabic Zone actually goes beyond that. Actually, you could count this country, however, it's not really into the International Arabic Zone. They only just go sometimes. However, the thing is that Russia actually doesn't like the nickname of being an Arabic country, as they also span through Europe and Asia, not the Middle East. They only have the Caucasus. The Arabic people actually agreed. So they told Russia that they could still join the meetings. However, they're not actually going to be called Arabic. So, yeah, the Russians got a win for that. Anyways, we can see that now this country right here, the Iberian Union, is actually getting a split. Okay, so basically, if you don't know, the Iberian Union was a really big empire which spanned through Africa, and also used to have Roman territory or Roman Empire territory, as they were like the very first empire in all of Europe. However, surprisingly enough, they're having a split because the Portuguese over here have said that the Iberian Union was created because of Portugal. However, Portugal feels like However, the Iberian Union's main language is Spanish, which the Portuguese thought was quote-unquote offensive. So they decided to split away. Which, in my opinion, Portugal, you're an idiot. But also, well, congratulations, you're a new country. Anyways, let's go to this grape country and let's see what it's about to be cooking up. Now, from the recent war with the grapes and the bananas, I don't know. But anyways, these people are going to be expanding because firstly, most of the territory is actually in construction, and plus they need new cities in order to have more people from the Arabic zone and everywhere else to visit this Ethiopian country. So now there's just a bunch of new houses and new cities that are being created because of one obsession with getting land and cities, and also the obsession with the government's people and people in general. So now the Ethiopian country looks like this. Now then, we can actually surprisingly see that this country is turning into a more quote-unquote Egyptian country, because not only did they actually win a battle, but they actually are you absolute? Okay, anyways, so this is what it actually looks like. That was just a fever dream, don't mind me. But anyways, these two end up gaining land over here. And surprisingly enough, this country decides to replace their capital city right over here in Cairo. And so, since they are still in the Arabic League, the International Arabic Zone actually said something interesting. If the Egyptian country over here wants to give up all of their original Arabic areas, however, the thing is that they'll still be in their Arabic zone. Everyone agrees. And firstly, we can see that this country right here takes the western areas, while this country actually takes the southern eastern areas, and Turkey just gains these northern areas. So now this is what the map of Arabia looks like. Anyways, with all that, we can now see that the Indians surprisingly have taken this part of the capital city, while these guys got the other half. And now let's take a look at the treaty. Now in this peace treaty, we can actually see something interesting. Now the green team wasn't actually in the war, however they did luckily gain the most territory. India also gained some territory right here, and the red team also gained a tiny bit. I think this area or this area. I forgot. I have a memory of a goldfish. Anyways, I actually just forgot about this war. I just low-key forgot about this war for like a couple episodes, and I now don't remember what happened. But anyways, yeah, Sri Lanka surprisingly pushes India for some reason. I do not know why. I just forgot. But anyways, India backs up. So, and then an actual peace treaty was created, which finally ended this 200-year war. Yes, all of these countries are paid for. Look, the Iberian Union, the Russian Empire, I think the Yellow Country, all of them were created 200 years. Well, this universe kind of ago. Now that Chile is like this, the Chileans also want to gain more coastal areas over here. I know, some parts are mountainous, however, whatever. They don't mind. So they gained some territory right here. And they end up gaining some territory right here. And they also gain some territory right here. So now a piece of Peru, and some parts of Venezuela are taken by Chile. However, the Brazilians, I almost said Russians, and I was like, what? But anyways, the Brazilians end up gaining these territories right here. And the Argentinians also get a tiny little part over here. Now this is surprising, as guess which country will gain this territory, this tiny territory, which, okay, you may think, oh, the Chileans look so weird with that, because it just does. The Brazilians, kind of weird, however not that weird. Argentina, ultra weird. However, the Brazilians could gain this territory. So take your guesses in your minds. Yes, that's right. The Chileans gained this unironically placed area right here. Oh, wow. Then the Brazilians actually took this territory illegally, and the Chileans are like, yeah, who cares? We didn't even like the territory. So, yeah. Anyways, we can actually see something surprising. Now, we know that the Caribbean over here hasn't actually had any changes. Except for, like, maybe the Cuban one. However, that was like 150 years ago in this timeline. I don't know. But yeah, anyways, this whole area gets taken down by pirates. Now, if you see this country, then you know it's the pirates. Not the New Empire, not the Grape Empire, just pirate. Just pirates. They do gain Jamaica, and they eventually gain Cuba, which means that Mexico no longer has any colonies in the Bahamas. Now, anyways, let's take a look at this country right here, or Australia if you're actually smart. Now the Australians have actually remembered when Indonesia was actually split, which it still is, and hypothetically, if the Australians could gain it, they will not gain the rest of the territories of Indonesia, which they don't want to gain any more land from them, by the way. So they decide, you know what? Let's just gain some parts of South Indonesia just for funsies. So there was an undeclared war with the Australians and the Indonesians right here, which ends up being really successful for the Australians. However, one day the Indonesians actually saw this, and they were actually shocked because they wanted to have southern Indonesia. Well, why would Australia have it? So they decided to push back. Are you absolute? I need to fix it. Okay, so anyways, okay, so basically these people right here end up backing up, getting these islands. However, the Australians never give up, as it has been seen and tested, IRL. So then basically the Australians also deploy people over here, encircling this and eventually taking the island away. So in this peace treaty, you can see that now the Australians have gained these territories right here, and also the whole country. Now, because of that, the Philippines right here actually like the idea of attacking countries that are split, so that in the treaty they don't gain as much territory, so that they could actually slowly progress. Anyways, after the war with the that country that died already, the yellow team actually said, you know what? Actually, I don't think that was true, because there was never there was never three different groups that there were never three groups that actually split away, but actually united as one. So the Chinese decided to declare war, but firstly go to the south, as they don't want to do it like that fast, because they don't want to do stuff. They just want to slowly encounter. Now the government already knows about this and actually decides to push them back, splitting them into two. The first area gets taken, and the second part lives. The Red Empire then gains territory right here, and also gains this island. They then move on over here, trying to gain the capital city. Now, before they do that, they also gain a naval blockade of Taiwan, which they eventually gain it, which then China recounters, pushing these people back, then splitting them into two groups. Actually, it was three groups, but now it's two groups. Anyways, this area, these troops and airplanes try doing things. They try encircling the capital city, which they do. However, the red team ends up pushing them back. And here we can see that now both of the groups have been taken away. The green team actually realizes this and decides to declare war on the red team too, taking down the southern areas right here. The Indians were also in shock, so they also declared war, because they actually realized that the red team was actually just trying to be a drama queen and absolutely ruin Asian borders. Anyways, the Indians end up getting these territories right here. The green people also try gaining some territories right here, which works, and basically now it's either have a peace deal earlier, or have India absolutely encircle you with China and absolutely bombard your freaking capital city, and by the way, your economy is ruined because the green team over here has exploited every single bank they could see, which now tanked the economy all the way to zero, which means that no war reparations are made. They chose the second one because they're absolute idiots. Which now the Chinese over here have have encircled them. They then eventually went to the capital city and absolutely killed everybody. And there's only one area left, which India decides to move into, which they end up doing so. And yeah. Now in this peace tree, you can actually see something interesting. Now it's not interesting because the red team is still alive. However, it's because this group is now back. Now the blue ones, which used to be over here, died out, and because of that, it now has a different purpose. It'd be a buffer state for India and the red team, so that now there's no longer any conflict with both of them. And you can also see something different. The capital city was at the very bottom. Well, not really at the very, very bottom. However, it was actually just in the middle. However, it's now moved because now that the red team has actually lost, they, instead of being in the middle, they actually changed the location to further, so that in that case, are you kidding me? Anyways, so it'll make it so that everything else will no longer attack them. Except for maybe Russia. However, that definitely won't happen. Anyways, India gains these territories right here, and Russia, the big country, also gains some huge territories out here, and ends up having a border with China. And then this cyan country also does too. So yay. That's a big win for everyone. Yay. However, India does lose a tiny bit of territory. The blue team also gains some. I said also like 3 times, bro. Gains territory and also China. So now this area is gone. Gone. It's now by the 5 powers. Yes, the blue team does count as a power because they're actually like one of the strongest. Like, I'm not even joking. They're just strong. They're just built like it. They're built different. Anyways, one more spot, and then something will happen. However, anyways, we can see that the Sri Lankan people are actually really tired of living in Sri Lanka, because since their ancestors were in South Africa, like right here, they actually wanted to come back to that, as they're really sad to not see their mainland with trees and deserts, and the point is that they really miss their old habitat. So because of that, new colonies were created right here. And just to make it better for the southern Africans, Madagascar also decided, you know what? Let's do the old border South Africa. Which now it is about time the Sri Lankans leave and come back to their old habitat, where they can finally be peaceful for once and live. Oh my god, that is really big for a freaking capital city. But anyways, these people then decide to live here, trying to regain their older controlled lands, and eventually leaving Sri Lanka and creating a new expedition right here to restart their lives as South Africans. and that Madagascar will soon have a conflict with them. And then after that, everything will be peaceful with the Southern Africans. Not without a freaking war. Now you see, World War I has been a hope for everyone, so that they could actually gain some territory, more territory than they ever got. And with new technology that looks so cool, like guns that yeah, whatever. However, basically with technology that will be so great for them, they will finally use that technology to, let's just say, do stuff by actually like gaining some territory and actually destroying newer countries that are about to be created so that they could gain more territory and will finally be what they wanted, which is to be an empire, just like Russia, just like China, just like Brazil, the red Brazil, not the blue one, and the um the fat the fat McDonald's Americans, the United McDonald's of America. But anyways, all of these powers will come to one thing: destroy half of the world, and destroy Greenland too, because Greenland has no purpose at all, except for being Santa's home. But anyways, yeah, see you later and bye.